or that are built in the same year, according to the same architecture, maybe to massify renovation also, because now this is the challenge, going from one renovation punctual to neighborhood or districts, and also integrated other aspects such as mobility, urban zoning, etc. So the directive says that member states should identify them and design policy to promote them, and then one-stop shops can be deployed in this area where there are these programs. So this is maybe a tool that member states and local authorities can pick to massify renovation. Finally, I will finish with other EU initiatives that you may be aware of. So the directives that I mentioned, the European Affordable Housing Plan that will be issued in 26. Now, this year was a year of consultation by the people working on this plan. Maybe you have been consulting on this. And next year, they will roll out the plan. And the key message is that renovation can deliver more housing, also more, because there's no point of that people lives in houses that are badly insulated, that are freezing in winter. So the idea here is that the renovation can increase the availability of housing. There is also the citizen energy package that will be released in December this year. Mostly a set of guidance for member states. And finally, there is an initiative. There are people in this room from this initiative related to citizen-led renovation. This was a pilot project proposed by the Parliament that we are implementing now. And the idea is really to put the citizen in the driver's seat of renovation through energy communities. So if you want to know more, I'm sure there are people in the room related to this initiative. And that's all for me. Sorry to be a bit long.
I would then invite the second speaker, Stefan Budzarowski.
Yes, well done.
Thank you.
Right, brilliant, yes. Thank you. Well, thank you very much for inviting me here today, and thanks for everyone who's here, who's present. I wanted to talk about the energy poverty dimension of the social climate plans today. So a little bit of a broader perspective, a somewhat maybe critical perspective, but also suggesting ways in which we can move forward as well. So, right. So the kind of idea here that I want to talk about here is this notion of transitional justice. So the fact that as we are implementing the Social Climate Fund and subsequently the social climate plans as well, there is a process of addressing past injustices, but also potentially new injustices that are emerging as a result of the low carbon transition. And in that process as well, there might be some injustices that are not being addressed through the process around energy. So from that perspective, there's a lot of challenges that something like this, but also, I guess, the broader suite of measures that we are discussing has to address. Right, obviously, I'm going to be critical, but I thought that maybe I should say something positive about the Social Climate Fund first. And I genuinely believe it's not just a tick box. I genuinely believe that in terms of what it is in its very nature, it is actually revolutionary. It is revolutionary in a sense that it extends the EU into an area where it hasn't traditionally had a policy mandate, which is the social domain. Obviously, that social domain has come through climate and energy policy, and it's come somewhat reactive. Obviously, it's come as a result of nominally the introduction of the ETS2, but still, the fact that there is an EU-level document and subsequently funds being dispersed to the member states around social issues is in itself a huge change. And I'm someone who's been working on energy poverty for a long time, and I remember, 20 years ago, I'd be in a room like this, and there'd be 3 people in the room, and people would say, "What is energy poverty? Are you inventing things? This is, you're just inventing another type of poverty." And now it's right there in the middle of these documents, and it's associated with upwards of 80 billion euro and so on. So in that sense, and obviously there's all the other suite of measures, but specifically this, in that sense, it has actually taken us into a whole new level of policy action and strategic development. So from that perspective, it is actually incredible. Now, what's also really interesting for me within the Social Climate Fund, particularly the regulation governance document, is that the way in which energy poverty has been defined is actually quite sophisticated and quite comprehensive, because it is not a definition, it's in many ways a better definition than the one we've seen in other EU-level documents, because it focuses on access. It doesn't focus on questions of affordability, which are narrow and changing. It focuses on the need of access for energy. And that to me, again, takes us in a way, in a place where we can open up these questions around the energy efficiency first principle, or we can talk about inclusion at a variety of levels and so on. So as someone who's an advocate, but also working with policymakers, it actually gives you greater flexibility to implement a whole and much wider variety of measures. The third, I think, document here is, again, and particularly from the point of rural areas, we're going to talk about the RENOVERTY project later, is the inclusion of transport poverty. And I think, I'm not sure, but this is probably one of the first and most detailed, most comprehensive definitions of transport poverty that we have seen in an EU-level document. And again, not linking transport poverty simply to individual behaviors, but also linking to the provision of public goods and public services is extremely good. And one more thing about, like, I'm going to stop praising the social climate. I have critiques, but I just want to say one more thing. But I think these are important to consider when we work in this sphere, is the inclusion of what one might call intersectional inequality. So there's Article 24, which talks about gender, but also gender in relation to other forms of inequality, again, gives us the space to bring in a whole wide range of measures, actions, and discussions. Now, looking at that as well, this is great, but then from an energy poverty perspective, I think there are three areas of challenge. Three areas of challenge where there's room for improvement, but also as the national, as the climate, as the plans of the social climate fund start to unfold in the next few years and start to be implemented and so on. I think these are going to be constant challenges because of the things that are left unsaid or are left unclear, or the things that create tensions. I would group them into three areas, and I'm not going to talk in detail about this. Later on, if people want to come up, we can have a conversation. But for me, there's three bigger challenges which are more structural, which also have to do with the mandate under which this is being proposed, but also in the way in which energy poverty sometimes has to be included within particular types of policy frameworks. So I would say, first of all, it's this, what I would call socially residualist logic, which is we have to always only help the most vulnerable. We always talk about the residual. So it's not about comprehensive social support. It's about prioritizing group A and group B. So that's fine. The problem with that is that vulnerability is a dynamic phenomenon. So we have vulnerability today, but then you have vulnerability tomorrow, and you have changes in that vulnerability. So we have this model of energy vulnerability at the bottom. We discussed that for a long time, but if you think about it as being at the intersection of affordability, of efficiency, and the material infrastructures of everyday life, those things constantly change. People's needs also constantly change. So you can't, so that's the idea of the transitional justice. You either have to constantly update your plans and your strategies, or you have to have definitions that are malleable to a wider range of groups. So that's one of the problems here. In the governance regulation, there is a static vulnerability definition. It talks about energy poverty. So to me, it's incorrect. Vulnerability is the risk of falling into energy poverty, not energy poverty itself. And the way it's framed also is kind of remedial. So it's all reactive. It's let's solve the problem after it happens, kind of end of pipe. It's not about preventing vulnerability in the first place. So again, It is not about thinking, right, what vulnerabilities might emerge tomorrow. Looking at, for example, particularly the digital exclusion sphere, I can see lots of challenges in that domain. Secondly, there is this idea that we can solve everything through a kind of techno-managerial approach. So there is an assumption in a lot of these documents, and I understand again why it's done in that way, but I think within wider implementation we have to think about it. There's an assumption that outside of any kind of document, there is an ideal definition of energy poverty that is going to, time's up. Right, I'm going to stop now. I was just going to say, there is, can I get just one minute, please? Yeah, right. There's actually, but there isn't. It has to be, it's subject to the social contract. And so we have to think of ways in which we bring the social contract into these debates. Finally, I just also wanted to say there's an issue with the privileging of one type of economic actor, the micro-enterprise, because there are other types of economic actors, which are, for example, NGOs or people in the charity sector, who are also vulnerable in that same way, but it's that because of that neoliberal system. Sorry, very quickly, if I'll go to the next slide. Sorry, I can rant on about this. I wanted to make 4 propositions, but for me it was, I'm going to say 1, maybe 2 and 3 what I'd like to talk about. First of all, and I think a lot of us in this room work in this intermediation space, and it's about building skills for intermediation and helping people around the procedural aspects of energy transition, not just about distribution. A lot of these documents are about distribution of resources, which is important, but the procedures through which we distribute those and the procedures through which people participate in these changes matter in so many ways. And intermediation, and particularly skills for intermediation, need to be part of this. So it's great that a lot of the housing renovation strategies and regional renovation strategies are being integrated with their climate plans, but not the skills ones. So I think we need to have discussion around skills and renovation and social climate issues, and also particularly working on that spatial level. Right, I'm going to stop here, and apologies for taking more time than allotted, but I'm happy to have a conversation further on if people are interested. Thank you.
Thank you. Then I give the word to Cecilia Bertozzi from JRC, who is currently online. So, Cecilia, can you please try to speak?
Yes, good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Good. Thank you very much for the opportunity of participating in this discussion, although unfortunately from afar today, and especially many thanks to the organizer for solving all the technicalities of this online participation. When preparing my contribution over the last days, I was aiming at discussing this question on which strategies for rural areas, but then I thought that rather than providing answers in under 6 minutes, which is a huge challenge, I would have tried to trigger questions. As researchers, questions help us to understand problems, to understand specificities, to unveil differences. It's a way to observe, and it's a way to leave no one behind. And this is something that we need to foster sustainability. If we go to the next slide, we can see that there is clearly a legitimacy gap. Some places and some people are feeling left aside or not managed fairly in the transition. And this is often the case that rural places are among those places and people that feel more strongly to be left aside or left behind. And this is true that a large number of policy documents and studies highlight the role of cities and their contribution both to the issues, the emissions, the use of resources, the waste creation, and also as places where solutions can be unveiled and applied, which makes total sense. But let's take an example. So for the energy efficiency in buildings, There is, of course, a strong focus on insulation, rightly so. We all know the purpose of a good insulation is to avoid the losses carried, therefore diminishing the energy needs, no? While enabling good thermal comfort. A very well insulated building might even not need any energy supply. And this, it's a rule that generally works very well. Next, please. But when we take a look at the characteristic of the built environment across the urban rural areas, so here in these two graphs, you see rural areas represented as green dots and cities represented as red dots, and the orange are towns and suburbs. And these two graphs, what do they say? Well, they tell us that in general, and quite consistently across Europe, across EU countries, in rural areas, we will have larger buildings, larger built-up volume per inhabitant in residential buildings, and less compact buildings. I don't think this would come as a surprise. It's quite logic, from what we know about the built environment. But what if we go into detail of what is included in this built-up volume when you look at the first graph? Because like this, it looks like in rural areas, people live just in larger houses. This is not the case. In cities, this built-up volume, residential built-up volume in general, do include maybe more consistently multi-floor buildings with apartments that might have at the ground floor or a small percentage of the overall volume a commercial area or another functions, but most of the volume will be indeed made of housing functions. While in rural areas, we do have other typologies, and there's a very interesting study that has been issued some years ago on the typologies in rural areas across Europe. And buildings in rural areas might include workshops, storages, garages, warehouses, and basically annexes or areas, volumes that are not directly dedicated to living spaces. So what happens when we apply the insulation requirements of having a very efficient insulation to these buildings? In the building in city, we will end up having a very efficient insulation. We will avoid thermal bridges, and we will share also the cost among different owners or different units. In rural areas, we might end up investing a lot of money to properly insulate in a really efficient way, also volumes that are not meant primarily as living spaces, but as annexes. Ultimately, maybe being also on our way in efficiency, especially when we take into account not only the operational energy used to make the building run when we use it, but also the embedded energy that has already been used to extract, manufacture, transport, and put in place these insulation materials. So I'm not saying that we should not insulate. Quite the contrary, we are very much on the same page on this. But what if we look at places and we try to foster place-based reflections, and then we might instead want to reflect a bit differently based on the same principle that works very well. For example, on the notions of heated subvolumes. These architects' notions that to make a proper insulation and avoid thermal bridges, you should not take the pencil out of the from the paper when you make the insulation. But maybe in the case of rural areas, we should reflect on what is the volume that we really need to insulate. Or maybe we also want in certain cases to reflect about less optimal levels of thermal insulation coupled with other strategies. For example, this other graph on the right tell us that buildings are less compact in rural areas, which means that, for example, they have larger roof areas. the famous fifth facade. Next, please. We also have to take into account that rural buildings are mostly detached or semi-detached houses, and they are in large majority owned, which is the application of several strategies, also access to funds. And therefore, we could, for example, promote, next please, ideas like the one explained in this graph, which is estimating the untapped potential of roofs across the EU for installation of photovoltaics and therefore production of electricity. And here it shows the potential production with regards to the needs of the average household electricity consumption. And we see that theoretically this potential would be enough to cover the needs. Of course, we cannot cover all roofs residential in photovoltaics, but this reflection of alternative or combined solution, maybe less insulation, maybe focus on self-productions and consumptions potentially in some places, especially rural area, could be something to think about. And next, please, we have what if we could promote in some contexts this self-production, self-consumption? What if we consider place-based strategies based on whole life cycle perspectives? This seems really essential to be able to have a comprehensive view and exact calculation of the benefits and costs that we are proposing with this kind of solutions. What if we use solar thermal and not only photovoltaic, and we use the same, so we don't have to change the pipes and the installations that are already in place, and we use that also for heating? What if we used material that are produced locally, maybe even bio-based? What if we reflect more on the impact of greenings that are, of course, easier to put in place in rural areas in most contexts? What if? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Cecilia. So now we go to the first focus area. I welcome Mara to give the first presentation, and this will be moderated by Stefan that you already met.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's session. Hopefully you can hear me well. My name is Mara. I am a climate and energy expert at the Institute for European Energy and Climate Policy. And today I will be presenting to you RENOVERTY. Before I go into what RENOVERTY is, I first like to talk about why RENOVERTY came to be. So energy poverty is, of course, a very important topic within the EU, but there was not a lot of focus on reducing energy poverty in rural areas. And so that's why we developed RENOVERTY. Next slide. Okay. Okay. So before I get into the summary of what we did within RENOVERTY, I'd like to talk a bit about the characteristics of rural areas. So there are 5 main characteristics which contribute to energy poverty in rural areas. The first is unfavorable demographics, which relates to the fact that many inhabitants of rural areas tend to be of non-working age, which means that they have limited income into the household, which of course reduces the availability of funds to channel into renovations. There is a limited access to education. To put this into perspective, only about 18% of rural residents have completed tertiary education, which is around half of that of urban dwellers. There are labor market dynamics that come into play. Because of the remoteness, which is actually point number 4, there's a lack of access to jobs, and with reduced jobs, again, comes reduced income to address energy poverty. And as I mentioned before, remoteness leads to a lack of infrastructure and access to services. And finally, the nature of the rural housing stock needs to be taken into account, as many rural homes are energy inefficient, as they were constructed before the first thermal regulations were released in the 1970s. There are also a number of barriers and gaps that prevent energy efficiency measures from being taken up. The first is financial barriers, such as a lack of capital, high upfront costs, and a lack of access to credits for innovation. The second are geographic barriers, which include geographic isolation, a lack of expertise of contractors to carry out works, and a lack of contractors in general to carry out the works. Access and awareness barriers, including a lack of access to traditional marketing channels and a lack of awareness of energy efficiency benefits. And finally, regulation barriers, which just includes a lack of priority of politicians and policymakers to alleviate energy poverty in rural areas as they prioritize urban areas due to a high concentration of the population in those areas. So what we did within Renovity is we tested a number of solutions in 7 pilots. These included Croatia, Estonia, Hungary, Slovenia, Italy, Portugal, and Spain. These solutions were actually integrated into renovation roadmaps, or as you might hear me call them, REERs, Rural Energy Efficiency Roadmaps. And the REERs are a combination of 2 types of documents. The first is a technical document for households, which guides them step by step on how to implement measures. The measures that are in the roadmaps are actually derived following a series of audits. So we actually understood what the needs of the households are and recommended the best measures to implement based on cost, return on investment, and energy efficiency potential. They also advise and guide households on the costs of measures, the timelines of implementation, and how to overcome common barriers for innovation. And the second document is a conceptual guidance document for stakeholders. And this is really advising them on how to alleviate structural barriers to renovation, including how to overcome regulatory, community, financial, and technical barriers for rural renovation. So the technical documents are for households and the conceptual documents are for high-level stakeholders. The REERs and the measures within the REERs were co-created with all of the stakeholders you see on screen. This is really important to first understand the needs of rural households and stakeholders, as well as to validate the measures that were included in the REERs. So we included vulnerable households right from the beginning. We did so by offering free energy audits for the households, offering energy efficiency advice, and in doing so, we ensured that they were at least engaged and willing to renovate later on in the project. Then we co-created the renovation measures with energy experts and agencies, contractors, financial institutions, public authorities, nonprofits, financial services, centers for social work, and last but not least, local action groups, which are a combination of private and public actors working to develop and implement local development strategies to increase rural development. These are really key for contacting the households in rural areas. So within our REERs, within the project, we developed a number of measures you can kind of see summarized here. They span the technical, legal, and policy, financial, and community type. And as you can see, most measures don't just address one type of barrier, but address multiple. So an example of a technical measure we implemented was one in Spain, where we developed a one-stop shop for rural residents within the project, and we also set up accompanied self-renovations. For the legal and policy measure, we did something in Italy where we promoted renewable energy communities. Additionally, we are in the process of setting up a statute which ensures that the income coming in from the energy communities can be funneled back into the communities and used to actually renovate the most vulnerable households. For the financial measures, we advocated for the measures within the REERs to be implemented into the social climate plan in Slovenia, and that the social climate plan and national funding mechanism, also ensures that funding is available for vulnerable groups such as rural citizens, tenants, and for energy communities as well. And for the community measure, an example would be, for example, the organization of events and workshops for households to present and promote the REAR measures and the available subsidy schemes. If you're interested in learning more or reading the REARs, you can do so by scanning the QR code or going to our website. The REARs are available both in English and the national languages, so they are meant to be accessible for as many people as possible. Some lessons learned I'd like to share with you today are the following. What we've learned is that adequate, accessible funding is mandatory, and this should be consistent. Without 100% upfront support, it is highly unlikely that rural households will engage in renovations. We also have noticed that local and trusted intermediaries are essential to reach households. As I had mentioned earlier, we engage the local action groups to actually connect with the households as they are already trusted actors within those communities. But this can also be done through social services and municipalities. It's important to prioritize technical groundwork once you have made contact with the households. We did this through the conduction of free audits, and we also carried out free technical designs. And in doing so, these were the effective entry points for renovation and ensured that the households would carry on at least, being engaged with the project. It's also important to ensure that capacity and workforce should be, it's important to ensure that capacity is available in the workforce. So what I mean by this is that contractor shortages exist, unfortunately, so it's important to train contractors and ensure that they understand what they're doing. In, for example, Hungary, we have a lack of contractors, and so measures aren't able to be implemented and renovations can't be implemented. And unfortunately, renovations take place via unqualified contractors, which leads to a set of problems in its own. So we have to increase training of contractors and also build municipal capacity to address structural gaps for energy poverty alleviation. Then we noticed that in cases where financing is not 100% for renovations, you can assist in decreasing the cost of renovations by using aggregate purchases and renewable energy communities. Additionally, it's important to simplify permitting and in heritage zones. In rural communities, a lot of households are in heritage zones and they are unable to actually apply for renovations because legally they can't carry out the renovations. And additionally, there are really hazy definitions of ownership. And when you don't know who is the owner of a house, you can't apply for funding. So it's important to simplify permitting and of course also apply provide application guidance for funding. It's important to also have stable rules for funding. Anytime there is a sudden change in subsidy or regulatory procedures, this reduces the renovations and trust by households. It's important to, of course, ensure persistent outreach and feedback loops to increase uptake of renovation measures. In the household's case, it's important to carry out needs assessments and include them in co-creation, and for stakeholders, including them in co-creation and validation of measures ensures that they are there to actually implement the measures that they are developing. Finally, semi-finally, it's important to mind the restrictions of leader funds. Unfortunately, we wanted to use leader funds to finance the renovations of private households, but there's a restriction on this. So a lesson learned is to use leader funding for renovations on multi-purpose buildings. So you can have a building that is both residential and used for business purposes, such as older care homes for elderly. I'm sorry. So you can find workarounds to use leader funding, but this has to be identified early on in the process. And finally, it's important to align policy making with, to align all of your actions with existing policies. And we actually did that throughout the project. And we are also in the process of embedding our learnings from the REARs into to policies such as the social climate plan, energy efficiency obligation schemes, ETS2, long-term renovation strategies, and others. So in conclusion, if the measures within the REERs are implemented, nearly 100% financing is available, trust is established within communities, the alleviation of energy poverty then becomes an issue of delivery. So I am happy to answer any questions that you may have, but because we are running out of time, I'm looking forward to the discussions on how we can operationalize the recommendations in the panel A discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Mara. Thank you, Roberta. So we have got now a panel discussion. Can I invite our panelists to please come up here? So I'm now stepping in a slightly different capacity. Wherever you like. It's up for grabs. Right. Is everyone up on the? So it's a combination. We've got a number of speakers here, primarily from sister projects, and so shall we start with? Well, shall we start with Slavica? Is that okay? As indeed, as we're going to go with the order of photos. So Slavica Robic, who's an assistant managing director at the Northwest Croatia Regional Agency, Regional Energy and Climate Agency, and her career has been shaped by collaboration with representatives from all key sectors, continuously advocating for innovative approaches leading to just and sustainable energy transformation. So, Slavica, your thoughts, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Stefan. Hi, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. So I'm coming from an energy agency, and therefore our perspective is somewhat reflecting both those actors that directly implement in the field, but also we influence the policies. So we have a pleasure of working in both segments. Through Project RENOVERTY, like Mara just said, we participated in numerous activities which kind of showed that in the end, everything is linked. I, like Stefan, have been working in the field of energy poverty for a very long time. And I also do remember when there was only few of us. And it felt sometimes like we were talking to each other about the issue. But now working on RENOVERTY and also now working on other projects, it seems that it's becoming all interlinked. And for example, in RENOVERTY, we work directly with rural communities. We work directly with vulnerable groups. And somehow from that community came the initiative, oh, we like the idea of establishing energy community. Can you help us set up renewable energy community? Then they also said, oh, we have a problem because we are remote and renovation is more expensive to us. Can you help us to group our renovation projects and help us renovate our houses so it would be cheaper than getting one house, I don't know, 100 kilometers from Zagreb, somewhere in the rural mountainous area where it's more expensive. And then we see it's all linked. So it's really a pleasure to be here and to discuss all of these topics. And I look forward to what other speakers will say.
Thank you. Well, we'll have some questions for you later, if that's okay. Right, and then we've got Doris de Bruyne, I think. Yes. Yeah. Yes. Thank you. So
Thank you,
got your name wrong.
Yeah, no, that's all right. Doris de Bruyne. It's a Dutch name. Hello, everyone. I'm here and I'd like to share some insights we found out in the developing the neighborhood energy compass that we developed as part of the Energy Poverty Zero project. Marion will explain to you a bit more about our project later in the next session. So for now, I'll keep to the conclusions, and hopefully you can remember when you see her pictures what I was talking about. So it's about increasing housing affordability, reducing energy poverty, and also overcoming barriers in both urban and rural contexts. And first of all, the point I would like to stress is that people make the difference. And I hope we all understand that as we're sitting here. Like the technical solutions and the financial incentives alone are not enough. Without resident engagement, there's projects stall, the behavior change is limited, and we can't reach the goals that we all set in policies and national and EU level. So people make the difference, and engagement is not optional, it's an essential part of the process. Also, trust is everything. That's what we see in all the projects. Local allies, like tenant associations, cooperatives, they can help to bridge between the residents and the project teams that are usually more technical. And in urban context, the collective is easier to make professionalized decisions. And what we see in the rural areas is that people are used to doing things themselves. Homeowners do things themselves and often pass on the knowledge from one generation to the next. So if you want to work on collective retrofits in those areas, it's a good idea to grow on getting people to do things more collectively and also build on legal framework in order to get this done. Well, what was already mentioned by Mara and by Stefan is that density and housing topology matter. In the urban areas, the condominiums make it easier to do the collective retrofits, while in the rural areas they face other challenges, and sometimes they're even more important. So you really need to take that into account when making policy about that. A well-renovated home is not enough if it exists in an isolated area. So please make sure we don't make islands in the desert. And step by step, you can bring residents along. So in the neighborhood energy compass, we distinguish 5 phases in order to do this. So first of all, you start a project, but then second, it's really important to start with the social cohesion. So engage for action, we call that. Prepare for engagement in order to engage for action. So don't start about talking about renovation works first, focus on more social issues, and then you can pave the way for renovation works. Then you need to support the residents during the renovation, and also don't forget to sustain behavior. So it's not done when the renovation works are done. People need to be guided afterwards, because that's where you really make your projects a success. So also the technical and the social parties involved, they really need to work together. Sometimes I see them like working in separate workflows, but they really need to interact to make these projects a big success. Well, really consider residents as your knowledge partner. We as professionals, we tend to think that we know better what people need or what their the things are that they are looking forward to, but they know their neighborhoods best. In ways that the outsiders cannot. So please make sure that you ask them what they want. And sometimes I see that, especially when we're talking about energy poverty, we think about poor people, and we think they're we see them as victims, and sometimes, well, they consider that they don't understand what we're saying, but they're still human and they're not stupid. So they would really like to be taken seriously and taken into account when making policies. So what I hear when I talk to these people is that they often are frustrated that there's a lot of talk over them and not with them. So please make sure you have the conversations with the people and include them. So that's really, if you talk about policies, what I think we should take more into account. And also make engagement part of the procurement processes, because I often see that the budget is, there's no budget, it's underfunded or it's overlooked. So we really need to make sure we see this as part of the technical process and make it part of tenders and those kind of things. So we really have serious budget for doing the social engagement, because without it, I don't think our projects are going to succeed. Lastly, I think our neighborhood energy compass can bridge the local and the national and the EU policies in that way. So not only it's practical, but it can also, we also developed an ICT tool that can map the places where there's vulnerabilities and the houses that it can target. So technical planning and citizen engagement can go hand in hand. And climate action without social inclusion is incomplete, and vulnerable communities are agents of change and they're not victims. So to conclude, the Neighborhood Energy Compass shows that by engaging residents, collaborating across technical and social expertise, embedding these practices in policy and budgets, we can make energy renovations truly sustainable, inclusive and impactful. So that's what I would like to share with you.
Thank you, Doris. That was very helpful, very insightful. I should have mentioned that Doris is as a co-founder of Slim Renover, and which is a strategy consultancy firm that is also one of the Dutch partners in the Energy Poverty Zero project.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Right, and then we've got Paula Fonseca next, who's got an engineering background, also extensive experience in end-use energy efficiency in the residential sector and small and medium-sized enterprises, who's passionate about energy poverty, equity, and sufficiency. A lot of us are here, you're in the right place, and also works as a senior researcher at the University of Coimbra. So, Paula, thank you. Right, it's just,
okay.
Yeah, and closer.
Okay. Good morning.
Yes,
Let's start again.
Yeah.
So, after listening to the previous speakers, and including the keynote speakers, it seems there is nothing, not nothing, but there is not more left to say about energy poverty and these kind of issues. So I would start by being electrical engineering, who has always been working on energy efficiency. I think energy poverty, it's a social issue, of course, but it's not only related to poverty, like economic poverty, but also to other poverties, like, if I can say so, literacy, like energy literacy and financial literacy. Digital literacy is also a problem. And I think through education, tackling all these issues, it's probably one of the means to overcome, or at least to make this problem less important. Because we have these directives and all the legislation for renovations, and the main target of this call, where at least our project Reverter and RENOVERTY as well was included, is about renovations and increase the renovation rate. And so it's renovations for energy poor, but the main focus is not the energy poverty, but renovations. So the directive for energy performance of buildings, the EPBD, is quite ambitious in terms of the targets for environmental targets for reducing the greenhouse gas, for decarbonization of buildings in a very short time period. So what, from my perspective, is mainly important is education, of course, and also to better connect the policies and interlink the policies, because I think in the end, what is missing is financing. It's a good financing instrument. Of course, there is many other barriers that we have to overcome, because from what we saw in the field, not all people is interested in renovations, in renovating the houses. So there is a need also to connect the impact of renovation of the building with the health impact, especially in rural areas where, for instance, heating is mainly, at least in Portugal, is mainly based on open fireplaces in rural areas, and people do not have any idea about how these impact their health. So there is a lot of different things to connect.
Thank you, Paula. Again, a very, very insightful and different perspective as well from your experience. So, and then we've got, last but not least, Pascal Van Doren. I hope you got that right. So, team leader of the Rural PAC Support Office with over 30 years of experience in the fields of foresight, rural regional development, and EU policy evaluation, having led various major international projects on sustainable cooperation, territorial governance, and innovation. So, Pascal, thank you.
Thank you, Stefan, and thank you for the invitation. So I'm happy to be with you today. So as you said, I'm working for the Rural Pact, and I will give a few words about the Rural Pact because what I have heard this morning from the different speakers and my colleagues here in the panel is that we talk about integration and collaboration. So the Rural Pact is an action that has been launched in 2022 in the framework of the long-term vision for rural areas 2040, launched in 2021 by Ursula von der Leyen. The idea of this long-term vision is to go beyond agriculture to support rural areas. In that framework, several actions have been launched. I will not go into details because it's not the purpose of today, but among which the Rural Pact, which is a collaboration framework, a collaboration tool to enhance collaboration between the different levels from EU to local, through member states and regional, but also between the different stakeholders, between researchers, private companies, public authorities, NGOs, and as well citizens. Saying that is that based on the long-term vision, which is covering a lot of areas, all the areas that have to be covered to support rural areas, including energy poverty, but also including, and what I have heard today is that we have not only to think about energy poverty, but to think liaising with, for instance, mobility, housing, as well digitalization, as you said, and other topics, economic as well. So this is very important to consider that, I would say, energy poverty in a holistic approach. In the framework of our work since 2022, I'm working so for the Rural Pact Support Office to try to, I would say, to implement this, I would say, this policy to enhance this collaboration, not only at EU level, but especially at member state, regional, and local level. I have heard from Mara, the importance, for instance, of the local action groups to play an important role to enhance the support to communities, energy communities, but not only energy, climate communities and others. So we have a lot, I would say, of actors to support this, I would say, the percolation of this collaboration framework, which is the Rural Pact. You have to know that this has been developed in several member states, also regions, to try to have this integrated approach of supporting rural areas. What I have learned from RENOVERTY project, so you have to know that we have organized several events, webinars, conference. We have covered mobility, energy transition, housing since the beginning of the contract. We had the Rural Pact conference 16th and 17th of September, and some of your colleagues from RENOVERTY participated in a dedicated workshop on energy transition. And what I have learned from the different lessons, but also from other speakers this morning, is that what we have, I would say, produced as, I would say, outcomes from this conference on this topic, which is supposed to, I would say, provide inputs to update what we call the Rural Action Plan, which is an important, I would say, policy that will support as well, among other policies, the rural areas. So we are fully aligned with all the lessons that I've heard, with all, I would say, the approach of collaboration vertically and horizontally. And I'm stopping here. There are other things that community engagement, citizens engagement, education literacy are all elements that we are also supporting in our works.
Thank you, Paula. Excellent. That kind of brings me, because I have one question that I would like to ask, noting that we want also to get the discussion with our audience. So And that's for all the panelists, but I think your last intervention connects to the question. And that also, it connects also to our first presentation of our first keynote at the beginning, where we saw this increasing local embeddedness of energy efficiency policy. So this is a question for all of you. How do we see regions and cities as drivers of energy efficiency policy? And particularly, what benefits do you see from spatially targeted renovation policies, but also what challenges do you see with them? And I think all of your projects connect to that in some way. So yeah, maybe Slavica, if you want to start. Thank you.
Thank you. I can start. I'm sure other colleagues will have also their say in this. Well, I think that cities and regions are actually the leaders, and they're the ones delivering most. Why I say that, even though we have national policies, EU policies, etc., but everything is happening locally. And when we talk about energy poverty specifically, it is the local authority who knows who the vulnerable people in their area are better than somebody on national level who creates a generic policy, which, like Stefan has discussed, can be sometimes problematic, especially if it's done too narrow. And also what we have seen by working with local communities and creating local policies like SECAPs and local energy plans, it is the local authority, and in some cases regional authority, that if they put something in their policy and if they put dedicated budget, then you can actually deliver the measures targeted to those who need those measures. And it is also, again, now very closely linked to this, let's say, new topic, not so new anymore, but not as old, like energy poverty, energy communities. Energy communities are usually also local. And if you have local policies that recognize energy poverty as an issue and that recognize energy communities as part of potential solution, same like citizen-led renovation, if they recognize it in their policies, then they are more likely to actually include the vulnerable in the delivery of the policy, in the design of the policy, and to make sure that the policy has the measures that are implemented then, not only in the wealthy homes, but also in the vulnerable homes, which is what in the end we want to achieve when we talk about energy poverty. So I think, to summarize, local and regional actors are the key to successfully mitigating energy poverty.
Thank you, Slavica. Yeah. Doris, yeah. Thank you.
I think it's on again. Yeah, and I think to make it even smaller than what you said, I think local authorities are really crucial in this. So it's good to have high-level policies, and but if you go down and really look from the residents' perspective, what they see is their neighborhood, and the district is even too big for them. So maybe think about it yourself, like when are you involved, like when it involves your next door streets, and that's about the area that you care about. So if you make policies for districts and cities, that's all fine, that's all good, but don't forget that people don't care about these areas. They don't feel connected to the bigger district or what happens 10 blocks away. So as long as you take down these policies into the smaller pieces and get people to understand that this really involves their neighborhood and what they care about, then it's all good. And that's why we called it the neighborhood energy compass. So to make sure that it's sort of the surrounding of the area where the people live, because usually the perspective of them is not so big as we use in policies.
That's a nice concept, the compass. Yeah. Thank you. Yes. Oh, there's another mic there. Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah, for sure. Local communities and local power is crucial for fighting energy poverty, because they know exactly and better the reality. They are more interested in the regions than the central government that is far away from the other places, especially in countries where the central government is centralized. It's like the policy making is done far away from the region. So having the local governments and municipalities engaged in this process, and because they can also lobby near the central government. So it's very important that they understand and they know exactly about the opportunities and the possibilities. For instance, renewable energy communities are now a big topic in Portugal, for example. Sorry, I always speak about my country, but that's true. And there is a legal framework well established, but still we do not have many renewable energy communities working like as a community, a renewable energy community. So, and they can push for the areas. They can link with the energy, the energy poverty in transports that represents a huge share of the energy bill of many people, more than heating, for instance, in countries where the climate is moderate. And so because they work like a real community. They teach the members, they are there for the members, for the community, not for making profit. And so I think that's a good solution for regions.
Thank you. And Pascal? Yeah.
Yes, thank you. I think you have already said that what I had in mind, but it's important to work locally. I fully agree, but it's important that the local is quite articulated with the levels, top-down and bottom-up approach, because local being alone, it's not only I would say the only solution. So it's important that there are some, I would say, coordination mechanisms put in place, and that's where the region is a very good level to, I would say, to facilitate this, I would say, this consistency between what the local is wanting to do. And I think that I would say the willingness of the local people is very key, as well intermediaries, as we said before. Again, I'm taking the local action groups that I know more than others, but a lot of local organizations which can support, I would say, these movements of, I would say, making aware the citizens, for instance, of, I would say, to try to do something on energy, but not only energy, on housing, etc. So this is important to, I would say, to enhance this, I would say, this collaboration between the different levels.
Thank you. Thank you. So quite a wide range of perspectives there, local and regional. So all of the need for coordination coming through quite interestingly. So we'll cut into the coffee break by a few minutes. I hope people are okay by that, just to get a little bit of time for questions from the audience. So any reactions, any questions? And maybe we'll take a few at a time. So we've got, yeah, do you want to do one? And yeah.
Hi, yeah. Hello, my name is Samuel Livraghi. I also work for ICP. I think it's very great to hear all the work that we are doing, and I think it's also promising under many aspects. My question is a bit of a provocatory one. We know that the ETS2 transposition is not going as, I guess, hoped. And not transposing this directive will literally mean no implementation of the social climate plans. So for the experts on the ground, but also for practitioners at a higher level or the Commission's representative in the room, what do you think that we should prepare for in case this does not indeed happen? Because we have countries that are like strongly opposing to this, and it's like 7 to 10 countries. That's my question.
Thank you. Any more? Oh, there's one more over there. So we'll take 3, and then we can. Yes, drop your mic now. And Thank you. It's a really good one. Yeah. Thanks. Yeah.
Thank you very much for the very interesting presentation. I just wanted to know, so I've been myself working on neighborhood renovation projects in Belgium, and also poor districts. And what we saw is that there is a huge problem with salubrity. And I didn't hear anything talked about that, like, because mostly we talked about energy renovation, but you cannot renovate if you have salubrity issues in the homes of people. So I wanted to know that something that salubrity, is it a word in English? Like when you have molding issues, for example, in the house because of poor ventilation or salubrity. Anyone French here that can help me with the translation? Yeah, the housing quality, basically you have mold, you have dust, you have poor air quality and everything, and you cannot do energy renovation if you don't solve these issues at first, which increase the cost of renovation and which is not today integrating into the financing packages that are proposed to people. So I just wanted to know if you reflected on that in the project, especially in the roadmaps that you developed. Thank you.
So, sorry, just see if there's any more questions. Right. Oh, there's one more, and then we can get to the answers.
I have a question on the district level renovations, which is less a rural issue, but also maybe in rural areas can happen, that less affluent households cannot afford to contribute with their own means to the renovation programs, and if they are kind of mandatory because they are happening in multi-apartment buildings, it can lead to displacement, voluntary displacement of vulnerable groups. And I wanted to ask if in rural areas you observe similar issues with the inclusion of the poorest households, and in the urban aspect where you work, if you could mention good examples on taking into account the poorest households' financial needs in order to keep them in the neighborhood. Thank you.
Right, so we have 3 questions. One is about the social climate pact implementation, so social climate fund implementation. Then we have on issues around renovation, and then rural issues. So if you want to take, yeah, we can start if you want to go.
Yeah, it's a lot of questions. I think I have 2 ideas on the first 2 questions. You asked about other issues of the house, and you didn't hear about them being solved. Yeah, so I think it's not a good renovation or retrofit if you don't take all the problems of the house into account. So for me, that's includes like also issues with mold and anything else that's wrong with the houses. So it's not just energy. If you do a good renovation, you take all these things into account. So for me, that's logic to include all of that. Yeah. Yeah, you asked, yeah.
Because in our pilot in Coimbra, I was involved in the Reverter that was not only for rural areas, and in Coimbra we were looking at social housing, and in that case there were some houses that were in this situation very old, and the conditions they started to renovate and realized that the conditions were not good enough to reconstruct. So the decision was to rebuild. They just demolished and rebuilt the houses in the same places, because these neighborhoods is in the city, really in the center of the city. It's very old, very tiny houses, and people didn't want to move to other places because another solution would be to reallocate these people, but they complain against it. So the decision in the end was to reconstruct. So during the reconstruction, they were displaced and were living in another place, but then they came back to their houses because they feel like that land belongs to them. Even if it's social housing, they pay a rent and a very low rent. But that was a strategic decision of the municipality, yeah, because there was this this recovery plan, this financing mechanism from the Commission that enable this to be done. Otherwise, it won't happen for sure.
Thank you. Slavica, if you wanted to comment on, and also on the social climate fund, maybe?
Sure, I'll give a comment on all 3 topics. So regarding the question about social climate plan and the implementation of ETS2, etc., I think it's important to understand that the ETS2 is a very important tool. It's a very important tool, but it's not the only tool. So Well, we have seen this through history that with many new policies, some countries are jumping on board, some are lagging behind. I do understand why you ask it as a question. For me personally, I'm not so worried that it will not be implemented in the end throughout of the EU. For me personally, I'm more worried how it will be implemented and will it deepen energy poverty in some cases if it's not implemented correctly. So I personally think that transposition implementation as such is not such an issue as is the way it is implemented. So it has to be implemented carefully, that actually the vulnerable groups are protected and targeted well, and that they benefit from this extra cost happening to them. Regarding the mold and other issues, well, I can only say from perspective of Energy Agency, in the projects that we lead, we always are very mindful that the overall picture of the dwelling is taken into account. So it shouldn't happen that after the renovation is done, those issues remain. And if the renovation is done correctly, usually the issues should actually kind of fix themselves, let's say, if there is ventilation, if there is insulation. But of course, in practice, we see sometimes it's not done like that, unfortunately. So there is a lot to be done on A, choosing the installers correctly, B, training them, and C, taking care that this is reflected in the policies that support the renovation. And the last question was regarding
the quality of housing before renovation. Yeah, specifically.
No, it was something else.
Sorry, displacement.
Yes, so in multi-apartment, yeah, so in Renovety, specifically in Croatia and rural areas, multi-apartment buildings are not really present in rural areas. But I can say what we did in policies such like a program for mitigating energy poverty in city of Zagreb. So the idea is that if you have such flats in a multi-apartment buildings, then the local authority should step in by co-financing their difference. So that helps alleviate the gap and avoid the issue of displacement or being unable to support the renovation.
Thank you, Slavica. So, and Pascal, if you have anything to add? Are you sure? Okay, thank you. Right, so in terms of coffee break? Yes.
I can.
Oh, I think we can. Are you okay shall we? Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, we have other two panels afterwards, and you have the coffee break. So I think you can get this opportunity for question also during the coffee break. I think we can come back here in 10 minutes. So please grab your coffee outside and come back. Yes.
Thank you.
And thank you. So we can start with the focus area B, moderated indeed by Pierre-Antoine.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me like this? Yes. So I'm Pierre-Antoine Dufresne from Ressort, and I'm project manager of Live Giga Regio Factory. And for this focus area, we are going to present you two live projects. Sorry. Okay. Okay, so two live projects, Live Energy Poverty Zero and Live Giga Regio Factory. So these two projects are carried out by the Energy Sprong movements, and I will have a really short word about that just to present what is it and on which topics we're working on. So maybe to introduce these two projects, our issue now is that we have to achieve this energy jump that you see on the screen, and it's a really big challenge, as you know. It's very necessary because we have to fight against energy poverty. That's the thematic of the day. It's necessary to decarbonize our building stock, but there is a lot of difficulties to achieve it, and the idea of the Energy Sprong movement is to propose a solution to achieve this goal at a European scale. Energy Sprong, it's the idea of activating a new market for deep, rapid, affordable, and desirable retrofits with a high performance level, net zero energy, renovation that are fast, that are affordable. The idea is that the costs are affordable and the economic model is balanced because it's very necessary if we want to replicate it massively. And attractive for inhabitants, I mean for the residents that are in these homes. Our role is to be at the very center of all stakeholders. I mean, we are working to activate this new market, and for that we're working with the demand side players, building owners, residents, with the supply side players, construction companies, solution providers, and with financiers and local and national authorities. So with this work, we had a lot of pilot projects to demonstrate that it works and to collect feedback to replicate it. So it leads us to a first standardized and industrialized net zero standards. And the idea is how we can replicate it massively. And this standard has enabled the development of standardized solutions. So that's solutions of deep renovation for facade insulation, for roof insulation, for technical systems with integrated energy module with heat pumps, ventilation, etc. And now our concern is how we can develop it massively. And that's the purpose of the project Live Giga Regio Factory that I'm going to present to you. Going next stage in market uptake and factory development for more affordable net zero energy renovation industrialized solutions packages, which is a bit long, but that's all the topic of the project. So our goal is how we can activate regional industrialization initiatives to scale up deep innovation. The idea is to face the challenge collectively. Why that? It's to pool skills and feedback and to develop regional supply chains able to deliver solutions at affordable costs. We had first experimentation and the results were very good because we observed a decrease of costs by 25%, but we see that further progress is needed. We have to be more precise in the choice of building typologies. The economic evaluation, we should progress on that. There is a cultural change that is needed for a product-based approach instead of project-based approach. And we have to develop the industrial capacities of solution provider to be able to scale up this renovation. So the success will depend on a sort of a collaborative visibility. It's the ability for building owners to plan for an appropriate industrial development at scale. And that's the idea of the project. So how we can do that? The first work of the project was to work on a digital tool to analyze building stocks to make some clusters of buildings that are suitable for off-site renovation, for deep and off-site renovation. So how we can, with open data that you find on the internet from building owners, how you can define, how we can rank these buildings, I mean to have a ranking, and so based on date of construction, typology, architecture, morphology of the buildings, and at the end to propose scenarios of clustering for these buildings to launch collective markets and massive markets of deep renovation. Then we have supported construction companies and solution providers, because if we have a massive demand, we have the supply side players must develop their capacity to be able to face it. So we have worked on the contracting side, how we can help them to develop their catalog of industrialized renovation solution. So we have a collective support program for this, a training kit. We have the lesson learned from the first experimentation in France in Région Pays de la Loire, MASH, which is a regional initiative of social housing organizations. And we have worked with the supplying side to help them develop their industrial capacities to scale up with business planning tool, for example. The lessons learned that we have for the first attempt of Giga Factory dedicated to renovation in France, and a strategic guide for industrialization. In terms of methodology, our approach was to beta test, to implement and consolidate our work. And for that, we have worked with some dedicated stakeholders that are part of the consortium, of the Giga Regio Factory consortium. We have worked with a social housing federation in the region of Auvergne-Rhône-Alpes in France, with the Société Wallonne du Logement in Belgium. We have worked with a solution provider, which is Builder of sites at the middle. And we have worked with a social housing organization, Est Métropole Habitat, who will be present today in the panel discussion. So finally, our impact at the end of the project. So many building owners and renovation companies were supported, leading to around 4,000 tons CO2 equivalent annual savings. So that's good results. So we have supported 90 construction companies, 110 housing organizations. We have the retrofit of more than 3,000 housing units that were retrofitted, thanks to our stakeholders that are involved in the program. And with a global amount of investment of 180 million euros, 22 gigawatt-hour final energy savings, and 4,000 tons of CO2 equivalent annual savings. And now I let the floor to Marion for Life Energy Poverty Zero.
Thank you, Pierre-Antoine. Good morning, everyone. I'm Marion Lignot from Greenflex, and I've been coordinating Energy Poverty Zero for the last 3 years. So the goal of Energy Poverty Zero is to scale up deep energy retrofits in vulnerable districts by kicking off collective purchases between private homeowners and between private homeowners and social housing associations. We are 8 partners across France, Italy, and also the Netherlands to do this. And we thought we actually needed 3 steps in order to deploy collective retrofit purchases. The first one was actually to develop a decision-making tool in order to aggregate buildings, see what buildings could be retrofitted the same way with industrialized prefab solutions, maybe. And also, on top of the tool that was mentioned by Pierre-Antoine, the tool developed as part of Energy Poverty Zero allows to have a view on energy poverty in the districts. Second, once we have identified the buildings, we thought, as it was discussed in the previous panel discussion, that we absolutely needed to engage inhabitants, especially when it comes to private homeowners. There's a lot of teaching and engagement process to be done. And third, once we're ready to actually do the projects, we needed guidelines and also actual legal templates in order to organize the collective retrofits. We did this, so we created several tools that I'm going to present with pilot sites. So it was a co-creation process. We have pilot sites of different configurations. In Borlezorgues in France and also Ostend in Belgium, it's detached houses with private homeowners. We have in Grand Chambéry in the Alps in France, we have several co-owned buildings that are trying to actually buy collectively retrofits. And we also have social housing in Milano, and in Bordeaux we have both co-owned buildings with a social housing association that are actually in the process of buying retrofits collectively. So this leads us, this led us to actually test our activities in 10 districts. Almost 2,000 buildings were actually mapped in the tool that we created. We were able so far to reach about 50 facilitators able then to deploy the engagement process. And we were in touch with 300 inhabitants while testing the different activities that we developed. And finally, so we created several open source resources for each step of a collective buying retrofit process. So first, there are general resources such as the Energy Poverty Zero video trailer. There's also an e-learning module focused on an engagement process. We have an ICT tool that's available on the web platform that that can be used. Then when it comes to engagement of inhabitants, we developed the neighborhood and energy compass that was talked about by Doris previously. And this is a process that actually connects with actual tools and activities that were developed. So we, for example, developed a kids program, but also a retrofit workshop, which is actually the format of a fresque that probably you already know with the climate fresque or other fresques. And we are really proud that we developed a video game that's called Renopolis, and that actually engaged inhabitants around the retrofit topic, and that shows them the benefits of buying retrofits collectively. And finally, we have guidelines and policy guidelines related to financial topics and also warranty funds in order to de-risk these collective retrofit processes. And we've also created contracts so that the collective purchases can actually happen. So we are creating contracts for private homeowners to buy collectively, whether they live in detached houses or in condominiums, and also contracts for social housing associations to buy retrofits with condominiums. And I think that's basically it. Thank you. And some resources are actually here.
Thank you. So we are going to move to the panel discussion. So I call Paul Sachot, Antoine Pagès, Sébastien Delpont, Ingrid Vogler, and Chris Tapskas to come on the floor. So thank you, all of you, for being here. So for this panel discussion, the main thematic is, I think that we have three main dimensions to explore together. The idea of working together, I mean, how can it be a driving force for scaling up deep renovation? The idea of the geographical scale from buildings to districts, neighborhoods, cities, and regions, how we can make more massified renovation contracts, and the idea of the policies, the public policies, how we can make these public policies evolve to be more suitable for this to scale up deep renovation. So maybe to begin, I will ask you, Paul Sachot, your innovation director, head of innovation of S Métropole Habitat, which is a social housing organization. And how can you maybe describe what's your role in the project Live Giga Regio Factory, the work that has been carried out as part of the project? To begin.
Is better? Yes. Thank you for the invitation. I follow yesterday a picture of last 10 years with Sébastien. We have seen the first project of an energy strong system in Holland, and we have together we say we are sure that it's a good solution to take a deep refurbishment and efficient zero energy system. And we say it's complicated, but we know it's possible. And we have decided to test. And we have tested, we have said it's great. We have a lot of solution, perfect, but it's very expensive. And we say we have few money and we need to find a solution cheaper. And we say, what is the solution? And we say, in comparison, imagine every month I go to buy a car. And at the end, I buy 12 cars, but very expensive. At the end of the year, I say, what is your best price for 12 cars per year? We decrease of 10%. Well, but now we imagine if all the social housing of local districts, we say we need 2,000 cars. What is your best price? And he say, I can decrease of 30%. Well, we need to take this same example for a deep renovation. And for that, we need to know which property portfolio is on capacity to be in a renovation. And for that, we need a tool. When Live Giga Regio Factory has created, we are saying it's perfect. It's exactly a good tool to find a good solution for the social housing. He hasn't in the solution, the strategy to his property portfolio. And with that, we are found the good size, the good tools to find the work for the 10 or 15 years.
Thank you.
And the second
question was, what in the specific of work that we made in the project, the role of S Métropole Habitat in terms of analyzing buildings and beta testing the tool to aggregate building? What was your dedicated role for that?
I found it's very important that you imagine there is no one problem, one solution. There is one problem. You need a company to help to take a deep refurbishment, but we can't say just one company. We need to work with a lot of company to create a groupement, a same of in France, MASH. Yeah. I think it's a good solution because if one company has some problem, technical or financial, so it's not a problem for social housing because the other company can take the work. And I found it's very important that we don't say one problem, one solution, one company, but one problem, a lot of solution, and we need to take this solution with a lot of company.
Thank you, Paul. Antoine, so you're business manager of in Neomix, which is a local one-stop shop. Can you please describe what was your role in the Life Energy Poverty Zero project?
Sure. So to give you a bit more context about Neomix, we are a company that belongs to a group which is called Bordeaux Métropole Énergie. And Bordeaux Métropole Énergie, the main shareholder of Bordeaux Métropole Énergie is the city of Bordeaux. So we are a public-private one-stop shop. To give you a bit of figures, today we accompany more than 200 condominiums in a retrofit project that represent approximately 12,000 dwellings, flats. So we have already 1,500 flats that have been retrofitted, and the other will come in the next few years. Regarding the Life EP0 project, we had the role to be the one-stop shop to do the energy audits of the buildings of the pilot site that we have addressed. And we have also been a support hub for the inhabitants in those districts. Our main role was to meet all the social housing companies in the region and talk to them about EP0 and talk to them about this program and to find pilot sites together with the social housing companies. We have finally found pilot sites, and we brought project support to the condominiums inside those pilot sites. We wanted to find pilot sites where there is a strong presence of the social housing company that previously sold some of his portfolio to private people, and that now have projects to refurbish the whole neighborhood. And we want to ensure that the private one will refurbish at the same time and with the same standards than the social housing company project. So we have been an interface between public and private actors and the residents in this project.
Thank you, Antoine. Maybe we can ask now Sébastien from the Energy Strong Global Alliance. So from the Energy Strong Global Alliance point of view, Sébastien, what is your view in terms of the development of industrialized and off-site renovation solution in Europe?
I mean, we can be optimistic and also sad it's not as fast as we would have dreamed of. What's for real, there's more than 15,000 homes that have been retrofitted with industrial methods, and quality is very high, energy performance is great, speed. So I mean, that works for real. In many EU countries, this is a reality that works. Challenge is obviously from project, it goes cheaper and cheaper, but not cheap enough compared to current lenses of buyers of retrofit solution. But it questions also what are the lenses we have to analyze the value of such project. And that's really something which is kind of interesting perspective. And also we're talking building and industry, and we have also to bear in mind there's industrial in an industry. And actually we're talking organizing at EU level wave of retrofit, problem of wave of retrofit is they are really wave of retrofit. It means top, down, top, down, top, down. You're done 10 homes to be retrofit industrial method, then nothing comes for a year and a half because people don't believe it. Oh yeah, it works for real. And you wait for things to be delivered for real before order the new wave of 100. And then you wait another year and a half. Oh, how much cheaper that was? 15%, good. We can order another wave. But just in between this time of wave, you have empty factories. And that's a problem when you want to develop a business as a company, which is also a challenge because now demand is scattered and coordination of landlords, it's kind of a challenge. So basically, solution work for real, happy, satisfied consumer, but still the economics are to be improved. And we have to dare that a newborn industry need also to be supported given the potential it has. And that's really, promising, but still developments because to the scale of EU problem, more than 15,000 is nice, but our challenge is million homes. So, but at least that's a leverage that shouldn't work. So not much as cheap we would have dreamed of. We also have projects that have been designed before war in Ukraine that rise cost of materials. Also, cost of capital was different at the time. So they have been challenged in a way that kind of make less fast the scale up, but let's keep engaged. There's great potential. And also something which is important to bear in mind when it relates to industrial retrofit, and people compare to cost. There's not one single cost of deep energy retrofit with industrial method. Why? You can say that's the price of wind turbine, that's the price of gas electricity, gas power plant, because it's really 100% wind turbine and 100% gas boiler. Relative industrial retrofit, there's different percentage of deep energy retrofit. Because you have projects where it's relevant to have 20% of works which are done with industrial method, other 40%, other 60%. So it's not 0, 100, like would be the difference between closing a coal mine power plant and switching to solar plant. So different percentage of inclusions of industrial solution will find economic relevance also in different urban and building typologies. And we have to dare to be more specific and not simplistic in assessing the value and get out of people's minds that, oh, I've tried 10 years ago and that was expensive. Okay, that was 10 years ago. And maybe you didn't use the right solution and the right percentage of industrial solution compared to your building type. So dare to get interest in how the market has evolved and take the right mix of solution that address maybe well and better today what are our current challenge.
Thank you. And maybe just one more question. What do solution suppliers need, according to you, to scale up?
So I would say there's 4 key topics that could be helping scaling the things. First thing is a lot of choice related to using the kind of solution have to be decided very early on. And often very few architects or advisors or buyers actually know what it means. It's not when you have finished conception of a project, say, oh, switch to industrial method. No. Because basically, for instance, just basis. Whether you can anchor a prefab facade, you need to do diagnosis about that. Faces. And if when you're doing the energy diagnosis, you're not checking the anchoring possible point and structural capacity of your building, it's not when you're making the order 1 year later that you're going to make it happen. So very early on. So we need basically capacity building towards what are solutions for prefab that come from potential buyers and people that advise them. Architects, energy auditors, so there's really an effort needed for them to understand the state of the market of solutions that have evolved. This is, I would say, the first thing to help, because industrial, they need a demand that understands specificity of their product. Second thing, I think would be very useful if we want to kickstart an industry, and I think that'd be great for Europe, is mandatory share of deep energy retrofit to be used with this method. We know we have a workforce bottleneck. So what do? Do we think there are magically 4 times more craftsmen that will appear on the market? Or that we use solution that takes 4 times less time to be installed? So the thing is, at first, oh, it's different, so it's not what I used to do. But if you say to countries, countries, they have part of energy efficiency directive percentage they have to do on worst energy building. So part of the objective is channel to specific public, because we don't want that only rich people get insulated and not poor people. And same thing, we say that share maybe 20% of deep energy retrofit in Europe should be delivered such methods. because they have the potential to scale. And so, mostly, I think the most important is to be fast. Because if we do every year 20% of objective we set to ourselves, now we don't want to solve energy poverty problem in 1 century. It'd be better we deal that in rather 20, 25 years. So I think it worked, for instance, for social housing in France. There's 25% of housing has to be social. This is percentage rule, mandatory. Maybe people are unhappy, but it works. Saying part of the objective energy directive towards worse energy polluting works. I think we should implement, say, guys, do as you want, but part of your energy efficiency objective should be delivered with kind of solution which give the promise for such a scale up. And then maybe another point, I think, is there should be also consideration in the financing schemes, both for industrial and landlords, because sometimes with prefab solution, it's upfront cost slightly higher, but better total cost of ownership, because lifetime of solution are very long. So very interesting when you're looking for long time thinking, but you don't get cheap loans when you have those products. And also there's a lot of more limited contact point between solution. Basically quality is higher. And basically the higher interest and quality of solution is not integrated for now by financing schemes. They should be bonuses, cheaper rent for that kind of solution. And also there's not only finance needed for landlords at buying, but also for supplier. Because, I mean, that's quite a business case to invest in a factory, developed by robots, developed machine, and there's a lack of support for that kind of investment. And the last thing, which is, I think, better understood, is we have also a challenge, is in Europe, we have a common market for everything, but for construction product. So there's a text discussion relating to a construction product regulation. I think these are very important things and rules. And now we involve very earlier on insurance company, because we're still in a world where a product that you buy in Netherlands, doesn't have the right stamps for a French institute, so you cannot use the building. Or theoretically it's possible, but if you install it, French insurance won't give you insurance for your building. Come on, this is nonsense. This is Europe. It's not possible that I cannot buy in France a very relevant solution developing in Belgium. And actually that was the case. There's a stakeholder from Belgium of Giga Regio Factory. They won a project in Lille, very far away, half an hour, that want to install it. And finally, that was not the right stamp of a French institute, blah, blah. They had to cancel the project. This is nonsense at the time of Europe. So this is really this artificial barrier to innovation being spread. Obviously, if there's smart solution, fast to install for energy poverty in Belgium, that's a nonsense. In northern France, we cannot install it because of habits. And then sometimes you unlock the barrier, and maybe I hope in a few months insurance will be okay and stamps will be okay. Then we have to people to let know. Again, capacity building, I think it's illegal, I think we cannot. Have you checked for real? So I mean, there will be also training, important that in the mindset of people, they understand, yes, we can use this solution.
Thank you, Sébastien. Ingrid? Ingrid, you're head of energy in the German Housing Federation. So what are from your point of view, what are the development that you see in the market in terms of construction costs, renovation costs, maybe balance between supply and demand for housing, for example, energy poverty?
Oh, thank you so much. It's better, much better. I'm here also for Housing Europe. Housing Europe is a part of the Giga Regio Factory project, but my experience is from the German housing industry. And before the offsite construction topic, I want to say some words from housing poverty, because housing poverty is also a theme in Germany, but if we want to mitigate housing poverty, we face another problem. Also discussed today, we rise housing costs. At the end, we will have housing poverty. And that's why we have to found it to subsidy. And our experience is we will not subsidize all needs for all buildings. And we will not be able to have deep renovation for all buildings because of financing. We will have some deep renovations, but not in the whole stock. And we face costs in Germany of 5 trillion euro for deep renovation for the whole stock. It's impossible. It's 250 billion a year, and now we invest 60 billion a year in Germany in energy efficiency. And that's why we have a way to do all topics. One topic is deep renovation for some buildings, but we have to be climate neutral in all buildings. So we have climate neutral heating systems in all buildings, and we also have a lot of buildings will have climate neutral heating, maybe with the roof insulation or new windows, but no more. And now I come to the off-site renovation. Can you see? Can I see the next chart? I will give you some experience from Germany. As you heard from France, we are dealing with it. We are dealing since 2017, and we had a big hen and egg problem in Germany. But it's developed with a volume deal, like in France, I think. And now we have 50 solution providers in Germany. We have 260 component manufacturers for facades, for digitalization. You can read that. And we have a bonus subsidy since 2 years, but our governments want to bring it down. They want to bring down all subsidies at that time, and that's a big problem. Without subsidies, it's too expensive. And at that time, you said it, but we all work on it. We have now 180 projects in work with 7,000 units. They will be finished in the next year. Last chart, please. And we also had a discussion what buildings are for off-site renovation. And the German ideal building is from the 1950s, from the 1960s. They have a simple shell and they have a high energy consumption. And we have 500,000 suitable buildings in Germany. That's 15% of the stock of apartment buildings. There are also single family houses, but of the apartment building stock, we have 15% suitable for serial or off-site renovation. And we have to finance that. The volume deal was a big help. The housing industry and the construction industry had a deal. Housing industry said, if you bring it in practice, we will have, I think, 12,000 housing units to deal with it if we can finance it. And so the construction industry developed that also as an energy-strong project. It's more expensive, I said. It's 400 euro more than, no, it's 400 euro subsidy for serial modernization and offset modernization in Germany, and 200 euro subsidy for normal renovation at the same deep renovation level. And you can see that we spent some more euro till this time to the serial renovation. We hope it will stay better. We solved a lot of technical problems. One of the most technical problems is the high precision reality-based service model. I think you all know about that. And I think we solved it with the time. We have problems with the ventilation costs. If we had heat recovery, it's too expensive. We use other or find other ventilation solutions. The facade attachment was a huge problem in the first time. And for the heating, we also use serial and off-site construction with such cubes in the neighborhood from the buildings. That's very interesting. And we also, in solving the financial questions, there was a startup financing for the construction companies, And the volume deal, we must see how can we decrease the cost. And the other question, must it be a deep renovation? If you had a heat pump, the heat pump as a level 3 for the energy efficiency. If you have 150 kilowatt hours per square meter energy, you have 50 kilowatt hours per square meter for electricity, and it mustn't be a deep renovation. We can save costs with moderate renovation. We have the discussions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ingrid. That's the perfect transition. Kristaps, you're an energy efficiency engineer from Ecodema. Could you briefly present Ecodema on the one end, and maybe on the other end, present the concept of the deep renovation roadmaps, and how maybe we can imagine it with collective of market players?
Yep, sure. Thank you for the introduction. I'm from Ecodema. It's an independent engineering consulting company based in Latvia, Riga. I myself am a practitioner energy auditor, and one of my day-by-day duties includes also to analyze energy efficiency in existing building stock and to go to these old buildings, talk to the residents, and try to solve their energy efficiency problems. In the Reverter project, one of the main aims was to develop energy retrofit roadmaps for the residential buildings. We developed several roadmaps for different building types, and the main aim of the roadmap is the main question, I would say, is how to build a structure to a very complex problem, because building renovation includes different parts that are in constant movement, and we need to align these parts in order for the building to be renovated. And the key factor in this is how to bring together all the stakeholders for the stakeholders to be aligned with the goals of the building renovation. Concerning the stakeholders, I think one of the main parts is how to engage the building homeowners. Also, as Sebastian already mentioned, that the demand side is very crucial in this aspect. And one of the tasks we also did in the Reverter project was to make questionnaires for the building homeowners and ask them what are the biggest barriers why they haven't renovated their buildings yet. The results in country by country, of course, are different, but if I may speak for Latvian situation, that the building homeowners, the number one aspect was that they could not agree upon themselves that they need to renovate their building. So if and the causes for this are many of the building owners cannot afford the renovation. This brings into question the energy poverty, and because the residents who are in risk of energy poverty have many other issues that they are struggling with and dealing from day to day, and maybe they cannot connect the dots that energy renovation may alleviate their problem. So it's very important to educate people. In this respect, also one of the pillars we had in project was the development of one-stop shops, where we also trained the energy ambassadors, as we called it in the project, the Reverter ambassadors, and these were, in a Latvian case, principally the elderly of the building, the ones who were talking with all the residents and trying them to convince for a renovation, because this brings the credibility. It's not some outside person that tells you that you need to renovate the building, but these are the representatives of the building, and principally the one-stop shop was tasked to give the tools to these energy ambassadors how to talk with different people, also with the persons who were in the risk of energy poverty to somehow try to discuss their concerns about the building renovation.
Thank you. We have still 10 minutes, I think, but I can ask you a second question. Paul, you're a building owner. You have made very big projects with around 1,000 homes units retrofitted. From your point of view, what are the advantages for off-site solutions?
A few examples, we have reduced the delay of the building work to 5 years on 20 months. We have reduced by 7 the noise of retrofit, and we have decreased of 10%, by 10, the carbon effect on at first in the refurbishment, and with the materials, because we are using prefabricate facade, and we are using 80% of wood insulation. And the first in France, it's very important because it's the first project, is certificate, and there is no problem of insurance. It's okay, and we have created a good quality of refurbishment for the summer. And now the tenants say the main problem is not the winter, it's really the summer, and retrofitting with insulation efficient and massive are very, very efficient. And we have take 2 examples, one building are no refurbishment and one with industrial refurbishment. We have found the same tenants, the same flat, and we have see in the summer in refurbished only 30 degrees in canicle period, and in apartment no refurbished is 40 degrees, 10 degrees of difference. And in 10 p.m. The sun is down, and the concrete decreases the temperature. Yes, and in a retrofit system, there are nothing this problem, and it's immediately a good quality of temperature.
Thank you, Antoine. You have worked on the working together between social and private housing. Now, what are the lessons learned that you have at the end of the EP0 project, and what are the levers that we can use to replicate it?
That we feel at Neomix is that when you want to refurbish a whole neighborhood mixed between social housing and private condominiums, we feel that the impulse must come from the social housing company. If the social housing company is not carrying the project and doesn't want to also refurbish with the neighbors, the project will not go in a good way. We need to find the good people in the social housing companies that are able to carry and that want to carry this kind of project. That's complicated. One of the major issues between those 2 kind of actors are the diverging timelines. I mean, with the social housing company, there is one project manager. They know how to do. They know they have process, and they can do the retrofits faster than the condominiums. Because condominiums, for France, first you have to make the energy audit of the building. Then you have to vote to do the conception work for the retrofit. So first vote. There is 1 vote per year. So first year, energy audit. Second year, conception. Third year, you have the prices and the architects have worked. And then you can launch the renovation, and you have to save the financement, the finance issues. So it's 4 years instead of the social housing company. It can do the projects in less than 3 years. So there is a real issue, and we have to match the calendars and the agendas between those two kind of factors, and that's the role of the one-stop shop to do this. The one-stop shop must have the role of technical one with thermal engineers and to know how the building behaves and what kind of retrofit we can do on this kind of buildings, but also have a role of a social role to know everybody within the condominiums and to talk with each owner and to give to each owner a financing plan, which is his proper plan, financing plan. And this allows that all the owners will understand well the projects, well the costs, well what are the subsidies, and what will be the final cost in the project. And this is the role of the one-stop shop. So that's why the one-stop shops is the main actor in this kind of innovation, and backed by the social housing company that must carry the project.
Thank you, Antoine. Sebastian, I have a surprise question for you. Very shortly, please, but what could be the new financial schemes or new business model that we can imagine tomorrow to get more balanced economically operation of deep renovation?
I think this question matters also to what is the end market we're targeting. Actually, what we've seen is faster methods for retrofit are mostly applied by social housing organizations that have big volumes and have a long-term perspective for that. So, and I think the big challenge also to build an industry is to jump what is between countries from 10 to 20% of the housing stock to the private homeowner markets, obviously in synergies with one-stop shop of other stakeholders. So there's a topic and financial issues for housing organization is for now, most of them, they have endowment rules. And maybe you say best total cost of ownership is investing 2 times more we used to in retrofit, rather than we use, because that's where we're going to go one step to the 2050 level. And then you have financial authorities for social housing that say, no, because your level of debt is too high. Yeah, but this is climate debt. So we should reinvent financial ratio for debt, because now it's considered poor management if you invest too much into deep energy retrofit, putting a lot of money on the table, and you're a bad financial manager. No, I'm a good one. The bad financial manager is the one that don't invest for the future. So I think, so either we changed financial rules in social housing organization, or we organize public third-party financing that allows this kind of scheme to happen without changing financial rules. But it doesn't have to cost with a too high cost of capital, because we're here for hosting poor people. If it's just higher rates of financial costs coming in the end to poor people, it's not a good solution. And then for the private homeowners, again, I think this issue of overcome the investment barrier is something quite fundamental to find things, because now we have a lot of retrofit project, even by one-stop shop in France, on project that need to be retrofit. There are only 25% of people that bankable. So traditional methods or industrial methods, problem is, even if the economics works in theory, banks will lend money to 25% of inhabitants. So financial innovation adapted to the markets is key to make that a reality, because I mean, long-term business case works is just upfront costs are quite high compared to what we had in the past.
Thank you. Ingrid, last question for you. How can member states' public policy be changed to accelerate the supply of affordable housing? I mean, new deep performance housing and retrofitted deep performance housing.
Oh, I didn't understand the question.
How about the public policies of the different member states? How can we change it? How can we imagine an evolution of these public policies if we want to accelerate deep renovation?
The politics in the European...
at European scale or national scale. Yeah.
I think it's not the part of the policy now. We have enough policies. Let's do more standardization. I don't understand why we have one building with 18 centimeter insulation, one with 16, one with 20. Let's do all with 16. It's saving material and it's a standardization. That's the first. And the second, let's bundle. Let's bundle not only the off-site construction, also PVs, also heat pumps in partial renovation. We do so in Germany. Bundle, standardization, no more politics.
Thank you, Ingrid. And Christophe, last question for you. Did you observe renovation packages that are suitable for the deep renovation roadmaps on which you're working on? And these renovation packages, what are their characteristics in terms of performance, industrialization that you observe?
I think in general for renovation packages that each of the member states already have quite strong legislation regarding the minimal values of the building heat transfer coefficients and energy consumption in this regard. I think what the biggest challenge is, I think the traditional way of renovation when you build all the support structures around the building, and then this takes a lot of time, and this is very, very costly in the long run. One of the main issues, I think that we need to develop a faster way how to renovate the buildings, and this is why the prefabricated constructions, I think, we will need to make them more affordable in the future.
Thank you, Christophe. Thank you to all of you, and okay. And now it's time to go to the, yes.
Yeah, so thank you everyone again. I think I invite Dimitris to give the presentation and to kick off the first focus area of the day.
Hello, thank you for being here. I'm Dimitris. I was the coordinator of Reverter over the last 3 years. Today I will try to give you the big picture of the project. I'm not going to go through details, and I will try just to highlight some key findings and lessons learned. So, in a nutshell, Reverter was a project that aimed to combat energy poverty by triggering deep renovations in houses occupied by vulnerable households. How we try to do this? We created, as Christophe said before, several roadmaps in 4 different areas of Europe. All roadmaps were based in the worst first principle, but of course, they took into consideration the particular socioeconomic, building, as well as climate characteristics of each pilot. And more importantly, there was a pilot implementation phase that included the establishment and operation of 4 physical and digital one-stop shops. And we tried to help these vulnerable people to enroll in existing subsidy schemes. So the key term for, at least for this presentation, is not energy poverty, is not deep renovation, it's vulnerability. And why is that? As you probably know, any one of us faces certain behavioral biases when we take decisions. But the problem is that when we deal with low-income people, these problems are faced to a greater extent. For example, these people face a focus, on urgent needs, and therefore it is difficult to make them understand the long-term benefits of deep renovations. They face a constant stress due to unstable working conditions, due to debts, and therefore they have a reduced mental capacity to plan future energy retrofits. They fear also the risk of debt, as well as the unforeseen costs that in many cases exist when we retrofit a house, and therefore even if they get a subsidized loan due to their unstable working conditions, they're afraid that they may not be able to repay this loan. And of course, They have uncertainty about the savings because they know very well that this will depend on future energy prices, on the proper installation of the measures, as well as other reasons. And last but not least, they are faced with liquid constraints. They do not have the means not to carry out the retrofit works in terms of upfront costs. In many cases, they cannot afford to apply for the subsidy. And unfortunately, this leads to the so-called irony of poverty, which means that these households that should take the best decisions actually take the worst ones. And if we focus on energy, this means that they pay more at the end of the day because they live in poorly insulated houses and use inefficient devices. They are trapped in low road choices, meaning that they choose cheaper and of course lower quality measures, which do not save enough money. And even if subsidies exist, in many cases, due to administrative barriers, due to ownership barriers, and of course, as I said before, the pre-financing difficulties, they cannot participate in these programs. So all these were more or less known, and we tried to intervene in Reverter by establishing the one-stop shops in order to guide these households to apply and simplify the whole process. We used, as it was said before, trusted intermediaries, for example, social staff from municipalities, community-based organizations, universities, students from the universities and so on, to bridge these trust gaps, to explain the benefits and try to reduce all the perceived risks. And finally, we designed and implemented several awareness campaigns in an effort to pass a simplified message for the benefits of deep renovation. But at the end of the day, we took some lessons in a hard way. I don't say that we missed our targets, but I would like to share with you some experience from the on-field, let's say, experiment. First of all, it's very, very hard to build links and trust with local communities. And just to give you an example, we had 3 new one-stop shops, completely new ones, and one-stop shops that was in operation for 5 or 6 years. And within the same period of time, the existing one-stop shop received, I think it was 2 or 3 times higher visits than the other 3 new one-stop shops together. Okay, it's also difficult to find the right communication channels. It's not a straightforward process. We noticed that some communication channels worked very well in some of the pilots, but didn't work at all in others. And of course, this has also to do with cultural issues. And finally, it was even harder to enroll these households in subsidy schemes. And of course, in some cases, this was due to poorly or inappropriate existing programs. For example, in the case of Brezovo, we didn't have a support program for detached houses because the national program actually focused on multifamily buildings, and we had just 2 family buildings in this area. We have to face administrative barriers. A common issue in Greece is that poor households live in houses that would belong to their parents, and in order to avoid taxes because they cannot pay them, they do not actually own the houses. And of course, if you are also unlucky, you deal with some extraordinary conditions like the high cost of living, which we know the results. I'm not saying that one-stop shops don't work. I'm not saying that at all. All I'm saying is that if we focus on this special group of our fellow citizens, we need more effective institutions. We need to finance these one-stop shops and professionalize them. We need to use, of course, trusted intermediaries, but in tier models. We need to provide integrated services. Our one-stop shops worked with the so-called facilitation model, so it was more a consultation. But in my opinion, that doesn't work. We need to have integrated services, and of course, the services should be free of charge, at least for these households. And finally, we have to design campaigns specifically targeting low-income people. Just to give you an example, we need to frame renovations in terms of immediate comfort, in terms of immediate stability of expenses, and avoid long-term savings. We need to use mobile one-stop shops, not only in rural areas, but also in the cities. And in some cases, it seems that digital one-stop shops also work well to extend our reach and efficiency. And at least in one of our pilots, there was a distrust in the benefits of deep renovation, and therefore, if we publicize the results, the performance of existing energy retrofit works, I think that it will help. But no matter how effective is the one-stop shop, nothing's going to work if we don't have more inclusive subsidy schemes. We need to establish more progressive subsidy scales. For instance, in Greece, the existing program had a flat rate of 50% if you had a family income above 10,000 euros. So if you had 11,000 euros or 111,000 euros, you get the same subsidy. Of course, ideally, we need to have 100% subsidy rate for the low-income households. We must somehow avoid the pre-financing requirements, as I said before, even for the application. If you deal with households that earn 300, 400 euros per month, and the cost for the application is 600, 700, 800 euros, it's impossible for them to take the risk. Just to give you an example from, let's say, more or less 180 people that visited the Greek one-stop shop, asking specifically information about the existing subsidy program. When they were informed about the terms and conditions, 75% immediately said, no, guys, I'm out here. We need also to promote the energy saving guarantees in order to reduce this uncertainty, as I said before, and to pair the renovations with temporary relief measures to avoid the renovation-induced poverty. Finally, in some cases, it may be useful to streamline this subsidy access with automatic eligibility, but some countries consider vulnerable the people only in terms of income, which is not true when we are talking about energy poverty. And as it was mentioned before by other speakers, we should support the collective innovations, not just to reduce the cost through economies of scale, but to remove some obstacles through social norms. So that's all for me. In my opinion, deep innovation should be a social right. And if we understand that, then we need to shift the discussion from incentives to entitlements. I would like to thank you for being here, and seizing the opportunity, I would like to thank the partners of the project for the hard work and commitment over the last 3 years. It was a wonderful journey, and it was a privilege for me to work with you guys. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Now we're going to start the third and last panel discussion. This is Laura and Nicolas. We're from the we're from the consultancy Billing, Barcelona Strategic Projects, which is expert in designing and implementing new projects. I will now present our panelists, and if that's okay, at the end we can have your questions both to Dimitris and to the panel, okay? So you can join us first, Martin O'Meloyd, which is a general manager of Ecovision, where he oversees integrated home renovation services and other initiatives addressing energy poverty. He has more than 30 years of experience and is now leading Ecovision's work in the Life Reempower project and also the national project Engage in Energy, both focusing on supporting vulnerable households in the transition. Then we have Marta Garcia, which is the co-director of EcoSurveys, leading advocacy and research on energy justice, poverty, and transition. She has been part of the RENOVERTY project team in Spain and also has over 2 decades of experience both in EU and national projects on energy. There we have Thibaut Perellon, Associate Director at Resorts, leading European programs for the deployment of energy sprung, both in France and Europe. He also has over a decade of experience of consulting and has managed large-scale renovation initiatives in social housing, and also supported innovative financing models for energy renovations. And last but not least, we have Maria Font, also part of the Reverter team. She's an architect and project manager in Europass Foundation, with over a decade of experience designing and managing renovation, energy renovation works. She also actively contributes to academia as associate professor in the Polytechnic University of Catalonia. So with this presentation, I would like to introduce bring my first topic or question, which is that even though one-stop shops are tools for easing the renovation process, in the Reverter implementation, we have found that it's not always easy to engage households in the process, especially if they are vulnerable households. We have, for example, faced situations like mistrust of these households towards the ambassador that went to their homes, and also lack of motivation for visiting the one-stop shop headquarters. So to the other projects, I would like to ask whether you have found similar situations, and to all of you, so including Maria, what can we do? What can be the solution?
Am I to go first? Okay, so thank you very much, and thanks very much for the invitation, and great to be here and to have an opportunity here in this forum to talk about energy poverty. And if I may just say, so it's interesting to see that energy poverty really was first recognized, I suppose, in 2009 by the EU, when there was talk about the internal energy markets and all of that. And so we see now more recently that energy poverty is getting talked about a lot. And just going back to when Stefan was here earlier in this morning and talking about definitions of energy poverty, the one thing that I will say from actually doing work on the ground in energy poor households and vulnerable households is that you will know it when you see it, and it doesn't come alone. So in our organization, one of our core activities is that we actually do citizen-led renovation, right? And so you see, this is a brochure that we have developed for marketing for our citizen-led renovation, but you also know by looking at this brochure here, which is normally in a smaller version, that this is very much a middle-class sport, right? And we do see when we go out working with energy poor households that actually you can see clearly then, the violence of inequality even when it comes to energy. So we are now in a project called RENPower, which you mentioned already. Obviously this is an EU LIFE project, and this has enabled us in EcoVision to actually now address energy poverty in a broader way. And yes, so we do come across that even when we do information campaigns, sometimes just for the, I'll call it for the mainstream renovation, we would see that when we would be, for example, we might be in a shopping mall and we have a stand there and we're trying to attract people to the stand, and we would see very often that people who are in a vulnerable situation, that they would avoid coming to, we would have seen that they would avoid coming to talk to us. So one of the things that we see now is that actually when we go to homes, when we're initially trying to engage with homes, that there is very much a resistance, because a lot of people in vulnerable situations, they're very much resistant maybe to anyone that they see as authorities or whatever. So we've actually, with RENPower now, as we had said we would do originally in the project proposal, we look to bring in other resources. So there's a national child poverty action that enabled us actually to bring in some resources that we were able to use, that we actually had a small grant per household, €300 per household, and that allows us in some cases maybe to like replace a fridge freezer, or put up some thermal curtains, or to some way to help us to get in across the door, that we have something. Once we actually get into those households, then we engage with them. My colleague who's here, Mona Zierengibel, is, I have to say, an expert at the whole area of like addressing energy bills and energy tariffs. And then we have a number of materials that we have developed that we give to the households then around energy saving at home, shower challenge, cooking challenge, and laundry challenge, all that type of thing. But generally, we do not find that vulnerable households are engaging with us around sort of like what I would call the mainstream renovation services that we provide. We have to go to them, and now we have some pilot homes in RenPower, and what we're going to do is we're going to work with them to see, okay, can we help them to save energy in the home, and then can we also help them to save those savings? Because obviously a lot of these households, even if you help them save 10 or 15 euro a week, they're already in a deficit situation. Johnny needs a new pair of shoes, or, how are we going to pay for the kids' lunches next week? So we're also trying to look at like, how can we actually help them to save those savings, and that they might use them then for some small steps, step-by-step renovation, and to see then how we can help them to help themselves to come up out of energy poverty. Thank you.
Thank you, Martin. Let's try to keep the answers like to 2-3 minutes, so we have time for everything and for the audience. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Laura, for raising this issue, because I think we face quite the similar challenges in our services, trying to promote renovation. The first thing I would like to mention as a message is that it's not a thing that happens to vulnerable households also, but as citizens, as owners, we have rights and duties, and I think we are quite of neglecting our duties as owners. We need to know and to be conscious that we need to renovate and maintain the conditions and the quality of housing. In terms of RENOVERTY projects, what we have tackled, energy poverty and dealing with vulnerable consumers, I think it's quite similar in all projects, and the message I want to give now, it's like the solutions have been given. I have just tried to put it in a 5 phases process and call it trust framework, so TRUST. So the first phase is the T, targeting who is vulnerable and who is not. For example, in our services, we have a 30% of no-shows in the first appointment, and this is something that we need to tackle. The R of relationship, we need to build trust, and we've heard about this during the session today, and credibility with the citizen and also vulnerable consumers if they are coming to the services. So this phase of building trust, establish a relationship is needed, because we need to engage and involve them. So the U would be the understanding and the uptake here, to engage and involve them in the process of renovation. It's not a thing of one appointment in the one-stop shop. They need more assistance, they need more support. The S would be the sustainable commitment. We need to ensure continuity, we need monitoring, we need to support the owner during the whole process of renovations. And the T of the tailored support, we really need to adapt the message and the information we need to vulnerable consumers. They need probably more time, they need more specificity. And then the second part, I don't know if I have 1 minute more, Laura, just to give us just a decalogue as an advisor. I think, yeah, I see some of you working as an energy advisor and now switching also to renovating support somehow. So we have like a decalogue, and it is important also to be critical to ourselves also. So we need to be active listeners. When vulnerable consumers come and say, I can't afford my energy bills, or I can't afford a renovation, there is much more behind. and we need to take that into account. Empathy, we need to build trust, and this is a key message. We need time. We are not producing sausages. We are not a factory. We attend people, and we need to take that into account from our technician perspective. Don't overreact, as we don't have the overall picture. No? For example, when they cancel a visit, when they have a no-show, there is a reason behind. It's not just us complaining. No, they are not. We have a 30% of no-shows. We are professionals. That's another message. We are not superheroes. We are not going to solve all the vulnerability situation. We are going to focus on the energy topic, and it's important for us to know that we are not superheroes here. Use simple language, and what we have learned from 10 years running one-stop shops with vulnerable consumers. Use simple language, and if possible, always by written. They need to go out from the office, from the service, with a receipt, with something in written. This has been important from our experience. To engage users with the community, it's important also to, maybe to organize something to meet other communities that have already started renovations, other vulnerable consumers that have gone through this process, that this also help. Empower consumers, be modest. As energy advisors, as technicians, the vulnerable consumers know more about their situation than ourselves as energy technicians. And of course, to adapt advice. That's it, sorry.
Thank you, Marta. Yeah, we can pass it to Thibaut. Okay, you have.
Yes, hello everyone. Maybe to share on the perspective that I have, because we at Ressort are not a one-stop shop. We are much more kind of an incubator, trying to accelerate all the initiatives and projects that brings forward the transition, the energy transition, housing in general. So kind of a incubator, consultancy firm, engineering firm, a mix of all that. And we are a social mission-driven company, so it means that we focus obviously on social issue as well. And that's where my expertise in energy poverty lies, mostly. So a lot of things have been said already. I'll focus much more on the aspects that maybe we've tackled a little bit less. I think, to my understanding, engaging vulnerable households could be kind of synthesized based on the previous presentation into 4 different actions that are needed altogether. First one, we've said so already, is to identify the pain points. And I'd like to remind you that when talking about energy poverty, we're not talking about buildings that we do have spoke about quite a lot. We're talking about people, and people is more than 3.2 million households in France that are under energy poverty. So it's not a few thousand people we are talking about, it's million in one country in Europe. So it shows the kind of action that we have to take. So identify their pain points could be also identifying that household, or maybe the renovation of the building, is something that will come after other issues. Finding a job, being able to move around the city, being able to afford food, and that takes time as well. So you need to solve all kind of social problems together, and housing is just one of them. So you need to identify those pain points. An example that I could give is we interviewed one of the tenants that used to live in a poorly insulated home, and we asked her what she was the most proud of after the retrofit. And she told us that it's the fact that she can now invite people over, and she used to refuse invitation to other dinner invitations, stuff like that, because she could not give them back, because her household was not suitable. She was not proud of where she lived. So this one is one of the pain points that you do not think about immediately, but you need to identify this pain point. Second point is, and maybe we less discussed about this, identify what the people you are targeting look up to. I mean, who is the people as an individual that you look up to as a trusted party? And it could be something like your your sport coach. It could be something with your local church. It could be something like your doctor. It could be something like the local association that you are involved in. And you need to identify and kind of show where the issue in energy poverty lies with those trusted parties. An example that I have is maybe a one that we talked about later, yesterday, sorry, with the renewable energy communities. Some projects start with local church that are going to say that I've got a building, we can install PV, and then local people will then join this energy community. Third idea, show proof to create motivation. I think that it's most of the time not a lack of interest, but like we said, a lack of trust. And trust starts with something that you can see, that you can visit, and that you too can understand. And it's such an important idea that we at Ressort decided to found a dedicated company that is a social housing trust, kind of, that will buy, retrofit, and offer those buildings to poor tenants that will live in them and that will act as a living lab. Because we understood that part of the problem was not seeing the end after the retrofit and what it means in terms of comfort and quality of living. And fourth step, we've talked about it quite extensively, so it's trust. I'm not going to be longer on that. And we've developed a neighborhood energy compass where you can find some nice information into energy poverty zero about how to do the steps. So, and if we look at the success, to me, success in engaging vulnerable households mean that they come to you without having for you to come to them. And I guess if you do those 4 steps and you identify all the things that we talked about, priority, then you can solve the kind of issue that were shared into the Reverter project as well. So yeah, that's all for me.
The problem of being last is that they have been tackling the most important topics. So I'm sorry if I repeat myself. So for us, it's really important. One of the main barriers, first, one-stop shop tackle the complexity of the process so they can help along the way. And also how to boost demand. And in order to do that, it's important to build trust, as Marta just said, and also raise the awareness, because most people aren't aware of the problem and how can they solve it. In order to retrofit a building, you have to be aware of what's going on, and basic language, and people need to know how a building works, how their household works. So for instance, if there's mold in your home, you might know that you might need to clean it with bleach in order to solve it, but ventilation also can help with that. And in order to do that, you need to let them know how to use properly use your home. So for us, it's crucial social marketing. Be present in the streets. Be present where vulnerable households are. So in schools, in the church, as you mentioned, in street markets, and also engage the stakeholders that already vulnerable people trust. So it's crucial to work alongside social departments or the health systems in order to do so. But adapting the language and give them information is really powerful, because just a better use of their home, you can even reduce up to 10% of the energy consumption. So first start with that, and then we can work and start the process of an energy retrofit. Thank you.
Thank you very much for these answers. I'm just, let me have a personal reflection. I was involved in a previous life 15 years ago in a large project in the world, in Interreg program that was dealing with energy poverty, low-income houses and energy poverty. And I feel that actually it's a reflection that I had with when we started the project, is that we are still trapped in some issues. For instance, how to engage the stakeholders. 15 years ago, we were already facing that kind of problems, and I think that and here it's something maybe auto-criticizing myself or those that are building new projects, etc. I think that we are lacking probably on capitalization. It's not possible that over the 15 last years, we have not been able to find the final solutions, the good solutions, or no, to get involved the stakeholders. So still the work to do, but I think that we have to keep on sharing information, good practices, and that kind of event. I think that are reliable. Now we have another question, a little bit mentioned from coming from our experience in Reverter. And I think that it's also it was mentioned in the other focus group of panels this morning, is a problem of the subsidy schemes. No, I grabbed some comments this morning. 25% of the vulnerable housing are not bankable. So difficulties with banks, difficulties to get, and difficulties as said by Dimitris previously, difficulties just to ask subsidies, no, just to present, to apply for these schemes. So our question for the panelists are: what are the problems of the current subsidy schemes and how to create effective ones? What are your recommendations to improve that? It's fair, good.
Complain afterwards. Okay. Dimitris just mentioned the main barriers we faced regarding financial schemes, so I won't repeat myself again. To create effective ones, it would be nice to enable municipalities of regions to be able to participate in the financial schemes, because every region, every municipality is different from another one, and they face their own problems, and they know the difficulties of their own citizens. So it would be crucial to enable them to manage those funds in order to do so. Also, make the requirements easier to achieve. Sometimes are really difficult due to the documentation that they need, or the income needed to get into those finance schemes are too restrictive. For us as one-stop shops, it would be really nice and really useful to be able to plan ahead. Sometimes the financial schemes, the timings are a nightmare. You don't know ahead of time when the financial scheme is coming up, or it might take, or it's open for about 2-3 months, and the amount of documentation that it's needed, it's humongous. So be able to plan ahead of time, know when the financial scheme is going to be open, and also increase the timing would be awesome for planning, because as you might know, if we are working in the field, to engage a community, a building into an energy retrofit, just to hire an architect, that might take a year. So to gather the information, documentation, the EPC, so the community decides to hire the professional in order to do so, the financial scheme, it's closed. So be able to solve these timing issues would be really important for us, and also be able to build trust, because the one-stop shops are the ones that is sharing the information of the subsidy schemes. So it takes time, and to be able to go to the communities, go to the neighborhoods, and explain the information they need in order to submit for the financial schemes. And that is subsidy schemes with public fundings, but for us is also important to be able to find private financing schemes with low interest rates, or creative financial schemes, crowd lending, or wherever, in order to do so. So we can reach the whole population with those financial schemes.
First of all, maybe a quick reminder of the context where we are right now in France, because the subsidy scheme is quite hectic these days. For example, MaPrimeRénov', which is the main public subsidy scheme, just changed a couple of weeks ago, and it does change quite a lot, almost as frequently as our Prime Minister, just for you to have a quick idea. So there is a lot of uncertainty, first of all. And I'd like to talk not about the subsidy schemes, but much more about the maybe economic aspect of deep energy retrofit in general. And I think, first of all, we need to understand the problem to provide the solution. On my point of view, the problem lies in three different particular regions. First of all, the quantity of money needed for a retrofit. There are projects that works on diminishing the cost of renovation. This is much needed. There are also question of how much money you need to finance a decent renovation. Second point is timing. When do you need and when do you receive the money? It's not always at the same timing, and that causes a problem. Third one is security over time. You're happy when you've done your retrofit, but how can you be sure that the benefits you are expecting are secured over time? And that's an issue for both the households and the financial institutions. So that's, on my point, the main three issues. And the solutions that we are either exploring or that are active in France are regarding to those specific challenges for quantity, to be able to articulate subsidy and loans, to leverage effectively money to be able to finance the retrofit. Just a quick number for you to have an example. On a single family home today, if you want to do a A-label or B-label retrofit, you're going to spend somewhere around 100,000 euros, which is a lot. 40% of it, let's say, in theory, because it can range from 20 to 80%, but let's say 40% of it is going to be covered by subsidy, public money. 50% of it is going to be covered by zero interest loans that we have in France, and that is much needed, but that also has to be repaid over time, which can be an issue for poor households. And then you're left with 10%, which means 10,000 euros that still needs to be financed, where especially households that are under energy poverty are not bankable, so they will not find it easily on the market. So how do you do that? An example is you are going to finance those 10K with a loan that is going to be backed by a warranty fund that is financed through public money. So you leverage public money to be able to mobilize private financing that energy poor households will be able to receive. Second one about timing. There is ongoing negotiations with the public bodies in charge of the subsidy schemes to be able to provide the financing before the works actually start. And in some cases, it's already the case, in condominiums especially, where you can, and when under certain conditions in terms of revenues, you can benefit from the grant before the work is done. Another example, for securing the quality over time, I believe that it's much needed to find a good place to bring energy performance contract into reality, like massively. Today, it still remains quite a confidential contractual arrangement that you will find mostly into social housing organization and not really into private owned markets. So finding the right level of energy performance contracting, meaning that you don't have to monitor everything, that it does not cost such a lot of money, but that it secures the energy savings over time, is, to my understanding, one of the challenges that still lies ahead, but that has shown interesting proof. And apart from that, then you need to train the SMEs to make sure that they can deliver effective retrofits and stuff like that, of course. So there is a number of solutions that we both explore and offer into Work Package 4 activities of Energy Poverty Zero. And there's also a number of actions that we believe are relevant that we submitted within a PRIOFIN and a PDA project, and we'll foresee if we can develop those.
Thank you.
And the overall idea is to go from those 25% finance projects to 80% at least, using those levers, of course.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. So time is running. We have to speed up. No, but
in the context of RENOVERTY, which is rurality and vulnerability, I can say, for example, in Spain, the national scheme program has different problems. I mean, same around Europe, I think, but mainly it's okay. The intensity of the aid in Spain, there is a subcategory for vulnerable consumers with more intensity of the grant, but it does not cover the 100%. The second thing is the social targeting. Who is able to request this social criteria category? And in Spain, they have simplified. So all people with the social bonus on electricity can't qualify for this category. But what is the problem? In Spain, we have a 75% of non-take-up of the social bonus, which means that out of, I think it was 4.5 million people are eligible to request the social bonus for electricity, but we have only 1 million people accessing it. So we have a 75% non-take-up, and this is like a cascade effect. If you don't have the social bonus, then you don't have, you don't qualify for the national program with the social criteria neither. So as a solution, I mean, it's important to design better these national schemes. We have other examples in Spain, more locally based, and the success has been based on what has been mentioned today: no upfront cost, to cover 100%, and to take into account the disturbance. So what happens while the household is being renovated? This for vulnerable consumers is quite an issue also, because they don't have anywhere to live while the household is being renovated. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm interested to see the results of this Interreg project from 15 years ago, so that we know why you didn't solve the energy poverty across the EU. Okay, so in reality, also let's remember that relative energy costs, like let's look at just what happened in the last 5 years, the pandemic, and then we had the Russians going into Ukraine and everything going completely like this price-wise. Okay, so in the Irish context, the problem with the current subsidy scheme is that, okay, so we have the 100% scheme for those who qualify. I might point out actually currently, so we have one home now that we have through Renpower that we helped to apply for this, and so they've been told, oh yes, it will be 2.5 or 3 years before they will be coming back to actually do the work. And then on the other end, of course, we have the the mainstream renovation. That's my colleague Marcella there, our project manager, by the way. Okay, so they can afford to do it themselves, that's fine. And then we have the people that we're actually looking at within the Renpower project, and also that other people are looking at. And part of the problem there is that the criteria for qualifying for the 100% are completely skewed and do not actually take into account this middle cohort who cannot afford to do the renovations. So that's what I see as being wrong with the subsidy schemes, that the criteria are not in the right place. Thank you.
No, thank you. Thank you very much. I think that we have to rush. So essentially, we wanted to end this session with the main conclusion of actually our project, and I'm showing. That's good. That's good. I'm fine with the camera. No, we have actually issued some policy recommendation tackling at the same time the EU and in general member states and then the 4 piloting countries. But I would not get into the detail, but essentially we are recommending actions regarding the data to have interoperable observatories and smart data that will help to have an overview of at the European level of the vulnerable household. We are also recommending fair and inclusive funding. So we have talked about that now. 100 subsidies for most vulnerable households, but also blending EU and national funding. An empowered local action, supporting more and more the one-stop shops, but also that part of getting ambassadors, getting stakeholder engagement, etc., pushing policy actors on that way. And finally, that part of quality, health, of the refurbishment. The part of the health-based indicator are very important. By the way, it was one of the topics that was introduced in the last call from Energy Poverty Life Project. No, they were specifying the importance of health indicators and so on. So. This is essentially what you can find in this policy recommendation. We encourage you to read them, to also to adhere and to connect to our Reverter website and to support this recommendation at your level. Okay. Thank you very much to all the panelists. Thank you very much, everybody.